Having recently launched the Art of the Menu blog, we have been reminiscing about our past forays into all sorts of dining. The kind of dining you do before you have kids. When we first moved to New York, we were quickly introduced to a type geek who often preceded our dinners, a man full of wit and a strong accent. An import from the beautiful Italy, Matteo Bologna brings a unique energy and obsessiveness to every project he touches. Like a good wine, his work is often layered in details and messages that keep surprising you every time you encounter them. About a month ago, I was having dinner at La Condesa, one of the places that he designed down in Austin, with a large group of non-designers. When they started complimenting the menu, I was about to tell them all about Matteo, from his awesomeness in the office to his eccentric mustache, when I realized they might not be as obsessive on the subject as we are. But of course, there's a lot more to Matteo than facial hair and restaurant menus, which is why we invited him to be with us tonight. Please welcome Matteo Bologna.
Hello. Good evening. Okay, I'm a little nervous standing up here in front of you all tonight. Really, I mean, it kind of reminds me, like, being a virgin, you know, and my first time. I mean, not that mine was so long ago, but I do remember like it was yesterday, and it feels like that. You know, your first lover always sticks with you because it's such an important moment. And I'm really glad that this lover is here tonight to give me his support. Hi, Armin. Sorry, Brioni. She knows? Okay. Okay, anyway, my name is the guy that she just introduced you. And I was called to this presentation as substitute to Brett Copeland, who couldn't participate due to some family matters. So I'm second choice. Very flattering. Thank you again. Armin called me pretending to be in desperate need of help, but counting on the fact that I'm an egomaniac publicity whore who will speak at design events even at his daughter's school, preschool. And as you can see, his ploy worked pretty well. Fortunately for me, this is not high school, and I don't have to worry about whoopee cushions. And it seems that most of you did not cut class because you're still here, I suppose because you paid a lot of money to Armin. Okay, so now I suppose I'm supposed to talk about this thing here. Actually, I don't know if you noticed, but blue, I mean, this light blue is the color of the day. Everybody's using this color. What's wrong with you? Okay, next time I make sure that the other speakers tells me the color that they're using in their presentation, if I'm the last one. Okay, when thinking about preparing this presentation, I kept asking myself, would I really despise this start? Maybe because when I imagine somebody who works in a branding agency is dressed in black with a 700 pair of fake, worn-out jeans, who's talking bullshit to a client whose only scope is to make sure that stockholders are happy and employees are brainwashed with their company credo. Or maybe, again, you know, I shouldn't be the last one in this presentation. Fuck, or at least send me your presentation. Or maybe it's because the cattle reference. And then the reference becomes a metaphor, so, you know, I imagine a herd of customers with horns and uders kept at bay with brand managers with lassos and cowboy hats. And it's not a good picture. And what is the designer's role in all of this? Is to be one of those guys running and yelling at the cattle, or is to be bullied by the ranch owner? Actually, I picture myself In the evening at a campfire, playing my guitar with my buddies, farting up a storm a la Blazing Saddles, and during the day being the guy with a hot poker in hand. Okay, the truth is I'm a procrastinator, okay? And I usually do a presentation showing, you know, my stuff, like, oh, look at how pretty this is a job that we did a few years back. Oh, this is that. And so it's really easy for me to tell these stories because of projects that I worked on, and I have nice stories. But I suppose that, you know, we have to talk about brand, and I wanted to shift a little bit more the talk towards this thing. And so I actually decided that I didn't want to do my old presentation and wanted to do something completely different. And that's why I practically spent the last 2 weeks designing a typeface. Because I'm an idiot. And, you know, this is something that is, unfortunately, is close to my heart. You know, the whole shebang, 4 or 5 ways, plus Italian, actually, probably this is 6, with a long list of open type features, watches, ligatures, small caps, fractions, accents, and glyphs for every language in every corner of the world. Stuff that probably nobody will ever use. Especially because probably we'll never publish this typeface. So I wasn't wasting my time, you know, checking Google News, Twitter mentions, or making Facebook friends. I was not opening my mail program every 10 minutes, you know, craving for new messages, or even creating Spotify's playlist with 80s bass players. Really? No, I mean, I wasn't. I was spending hours, you know, working the shapes of letter, front spacing, kerning, and all this bullshit that are necessary to design a type family. Because I was supposed to prepare this presentation. I was actually doing a little bit of all the above. You know, I'm feeling guilty as the day of this talk got closer. First, day by day, then minute by minute. And still there was no trace of this presentation on my computer. The truth is that typography is my addiction. And has been since my first copy of Photographer arrived legally, kind of legally, no, illegally. I can't say it, I mean, that company doesn't exist even anymore, so. On a 3.5 inches floppy disk, okay? For the non-type nerds, that is the software that revolutionized typography, as we know it today, because it gave power to designers to be their own type foundries. And paraphrasing, I like this word. Is it paraphrasing or paraphrasing? Paraphrasing. Okay. Jonathan Brambrook says, you know, it was like when the first electric guitar appeared and made rock and roll. And this is how kind of like I felt, you know. But probably you're thinking, what the fuck is this guy talking about? And I wonder myself. You want me to talk about branding because that's what you paid and that's what the only thing that you want to know now, isn't it? The thing that you want to know about branding and probably going to the party afterwards. So I'm getting closer. So, okay. So while playing with my first font designs many years ago, I realized that type speaks even without saying anything. This is not an alphabet. It looks something like an alphabet. Maybe it's Klingon. And these are not letters, though what you get, it's a series of glyphs. And it's something that says probably, you know, masculine, stern, functional, strong, authoritative, official, modern, and more things. This one, same shapes, same fake alphabet, but tells us something completely different, thanks to the different construction of the shapes of each single glyph. So here we have something like, you know, feminine, sophisticated, historic, fashion, decorative. You just saw 2 known words unrelated to our language, but still an incredible capacity to move our brain cells in direction familiar to you, just because we have been exposed for all our lives to something similar, and most of the time without even noticing it. Typography is the only art that it's self-referential. You know, painting can be abstract too, but for most of human history it's always been something that has nature as a model. While type doesn't represent anything, though it has the power to suggest something. Type is a code to interpret something as abstract as sounds and thoughts, but because type is not just an objective interpreter, and that's the coolest part, it adds nuances to the message, and sometimes it can even take over the message. This as old is cool. I have no idea why Alex Trockhut used this typeface. It destroyed the content of it, but it's super cool. It doesn't matter. I want to put it in this presentation. He's one of my favorite artists. So the discovery of this suggestive power led me to embrace type as a determinant part of the building of a brand. And since I started working on this field, I've tried to use it as a key part of the branding communication. So, are you happy? How many times did I say this B word? Did you count? Okay, so you're getting your money's worth. You know? So you should pay me more. I mean, the more I say branding, can you get more money? Oh, okay, thank you. Not going to say what it just said. Okay, so at the beginning of my career, so I'm going to talk about history. You know? My process of brand building was instinctive. I think when I first started in design, the term in use was still, you know, corporate identity. And year by year, both the term and my understanding of the process and its importance has evolved to a point where I don't feel ashamed anymore to say that I had a branding company. Yeah. I was very lucky because one of the first jobs I did here in the US needed recognizable typography as a natural part of the assignment. The project I'm talking about is a Russian speakeasy in New York called Pravda. Being that it was a thematic restaurant bar inspired by the Russian Revolution, the branding development was obvious and circumscribed to a narrowed down topic. It was kind of easy, actually, I have to say. Therefore, my branding process, this very great process that I had, was to create a font family of something like 10 weights of a kind of like fake Cyrillic constructivist font that then I plopped everywhere in the brand. So this was when I had absolutely no fucking idea how to structure the building of a narrative for a client's visual communication. I was just playing with my instinct fueled by passion of making. This is not with very profitable ends because for this project I was never paid for the font making. And it was like shooting in the dark, hoping that the client would like what I was doing. Lesson to be learned. Never design 10 typefaces, okay? Really. Really don't do it even if it's fun. But apparently this lesson is a hard one to remember and has not been placed into practice by yours truly. So this is a type that I did for Balthazar, I think. Of course, unpaid, was fun, but at least I didn't finish it. And it was only one weight. You know, because of the projects that I did later, you know, such Balthazar or Pastis, we're still done with this design process that results in more pain than gain. I think this box label has like a total of 11 different typefaces. And again, because I think we have to quote Massimo Vignelli for the 4th time today, none of these typefaces is from Massimo's list. Okay, so here was the Matteo method, okay? It's a great method. You should never do it. Okay, so here's how the process went. Client asks for a logo and collateral. I spent time looking through design books, new and ancient, okay? Then make the logo out of something that I saw. Then I make them more. Then I present all of them to the client. Like this was one example for this restaurant. And client is confused. Client becomes a designer and suggests mixing proposal 3 with proposal 5, but with the colors of 8. Next, after a couple of days of moving pieces here and there, the new proposal is ready. But of course, client thinks the logo is a mismatch of different ideas. And we go back to square one. More presentation follows until the logo gets chosen for some esoteric reason, or maybe just for exhaustion. So that logo that you saw before then became this thing because, you know, sometimes it's kind of weird. You know, you start with the client that comes out with, you have a fucked up method of designing stuff, and your client is more fucked up than you. So after you do your presentation with a name that the client gives you, after your 10th presentation and 3 revisions, he decides to change the name of the restaurant. And this is what happened in this case, which of course you can, because most of the, whenever we do logotypes, we always do it with custom lettering. You have to redo it from scratch, especially when from Kaminsky's goes to Schiller's. Probably there's not even a letter that matches. So this is some of the stuff that we did for them. It was pretty funny. They have this, you can drink this wine, you can have the cheap, the decent, or good. Actually, the cheap, I prefer the cheap than the decent, but that's my taste. So this is the approach that I always used until it was decided from my wife that I had to move the studio out of my bedroom. And after a few desk rentals here and there, I leased my own space and hired some employees and founded a very serious design company. But then is when the Matteo's process began to take a toll. Because one of the important elements of the process that was never taken into account in the highly scientific method of mine was the element called profit. It was in fact substituted with the fun factor, which implied being immersed in the research that involved the unfocused study of typefaces and historical materials for days, nights, and weekends. Do I look like do you think I'm not giving a good picture of myself? It's not, I'm kind of stupid, actually. I shouldn't have told you this. Okay. You see, I was still convinced that in order to do something good, you just had to work many hours, and quantity would eventually beat quality. Mistake. This method only works if you have low overhead and a lot of time in your hands, which became a mirage in the distance once I established Muka Design. And this was around 10 years ago. But fortunately, after a few years, I hired Roberta as a managing director, who then became my business partner, and started to put in place processes that would prevent the implosion and transformation of a company into a children's playhouse. Thanks to her business experience, now we have a process that makes sure that the results are never unexpected to the client, and therefore the designers can be properly focused on the development of the project. This new revolutionary process is called the figure out what the client wants, even if he doesn't know, so that we can give him what he really needs without wasting his and our time method. It is a process that we worked hard to fine-tune over the years, that has brought good results without becoming an impediment on the creative teams imposed from above. It doesn't look like somebody from the management of the company is imposing stuff. So, also because the designers are really part of this very important team, this important method. So if you're a designer, please do not be scared. It kind of works. What you do is pretty simple, and probably several of our colleagues here are doing something similar through probably their process probably a shorter name than this. Here it works. After the customary years of doing the negotiation dance with prospective clients, we hold therapy sessions in which we try to get as much information as possible about them and their brains, going back to their infancy and their relationship with their parents, the unearthing of their sexuality, their competitors, their aspiration, and most importantly, their dreams. Well, that is what, usually people call it research and discovery. Next, like two dogs introducing themselves, we smell each other, and we build a common ground of understanding. Unlike dogs, we do this using words and making sure that these words hold the same meaning for both parties. So that, for instance, the word modern has the same connotation for the client as it has for us. This process is totally collaborative. It is never us versus them. It's not as much as, like they do in Australia, but we like to play with our clients. And also, this process creates a bonding between the two parties. And now we're going to talk about this project as an example. So, for instance, in a project like this specialty grocery store in Brooklyn, we did, a strategy part. This is some of the stuff we do. We start the strategy with a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. A competitive landscape analysis, et cetera, et cetera. So, for instance, here you see that BC Food Corp sits in this point, in this, graph where you have, quality, price, and we try to figure out where a client sits within their landscape. Then sometimes we analyze the demographics to define the target audience. This was a new place in Brooklyn, in a new area, and they were investing in this space, and we needed to figure out who the fuck were their customers. So we did this research, which sound pretty boring. Actually, it was actually interesting, I have to say. Not as good as designing letter forms, but it was interesting. The result of this phase is a brand positioning statement, an agreed-upon vision of the project. With only a couple of sentences, we express the personality and position of the brand in a concise way that will inform the visual or verbal elements that we'll produce in the next phases. So, I don't want to read this, it's too long. So, if you want to read it, I'm not going to read it. You can keep reading it. Happy now. I just said brand again. You noticed? Okay. So, okay, good. Okay, so this thing, the brand positioning statement, is our compass. It's the center of gravity of everything we do, okay, around which everything spins. Nothing happens next until we, the client and us, when I say we, in this case, it's always together, have agreed upon the brand positioning statement. It's something that we really do together. So, for this particular project, we needed also a name. Therefore, we selected a series of names which exemplified the brand positioning statement. And most importantly, each of these proposals that we did had words, attributes that are related to the brand statement. So it's not that we just come out with names, hey, this is cool, this is that. But everything, we need to make sure that if somebody comes out with a name, that the name reflects the attributes that we determined before with a statement. Then, out of this proposal, the name came out. But if you think that the next step is where we start doing, like the designy things, shapes and colors and this kind of stuff, you're quite mistaken. Because, of course, we go with this thing that, it's the transition between the word, what we define the word in the brain statement, and the visual. So we do this, that most people calls it mood board. Joe Duffy calls it visual brief, and I actually prefer this. I find it cooler, also because I love Joe Duffy, so I think if he says it, it must be cool. So, again, this is a store. We were in charge of designing the store space as well as the graphics. So this mood board shows materials and typography and colors, and the mood of the brand. Now, okay, this is what ended up being, like when we started working at the logo. So the interesting thing is that, as you can see, the brand development is an approach in a broad IMSian, like IMS, power of 10 scale by creating a common verbal and visual platform that paves the way for the following steps of the brand building. So we go from big to small. I'm not very good at whistling. No, I suck at whistling. Okay, these collaborative phases let us avoid the clusterfuck of the 20 logotype presentation that leaves clients unable to make a decision, because the clients have an idea of what they are expecting. The clock here is 0, means that I have to leave? Okay, so because otherwise I can leave, it's fine. Okay, so I use the transition, have you seen? That's cool, huh? Moving forward, okay, every time we develop a new dimension of the brand, we refer back to the brand positioning statement as a guide, as our God, It is the roadmap that gives us the freedom to explore uncharted territories in order to arrive at a new idea without losing our way or the essence of the brand. As you can see, it informs, influences, and guides the design development process, infusing every part of the project. So, we realize that not only the copy is important, but also I cannot say this word, vehicle. Okay, so we realize that only the copy is important, but also the vehicle to express the personality. The typeface, okay? So I go back to the beginning, And here we go back to my initial thought about the importance of typography in branding. So the copy of this brand, represents fully the expression of the brand. Because this brand is positioned as a local store with personalized service. Like in old Brooklyn stores where you know the owner and they can tell you, hey, there is this new cheese that just arrived, you should taste it. No, don't get that one is old. So it's this idea of personal service that we wanted to express with the brand. And in opposition of all these big box brands that were opening next door, there is Trader Joe's that were planning of a Whole Foods opening in the air, which, thanks for them, didn't open. So the copy here is just, is just a big finger to these companies, and at the same time validates this company. And so the whole communication, we decided that, as you can see you saw from all these images I showed before, was based on speaking to the client, like to the customers, like if you were the shopkeeper. So everything, the positioning statement is necessary for our designers, strategists, and copywriters to be able to focus their effort to build better logos or typefaces and to define the tone of the writing for the website and eventually even the UI. So the difference between the young and beautiful Matteo who started fucking around with some type design software, and the middle-aged man, but still beautiful. Why are you laughing? Okay, that you have in front of you is that now I have this superpower of understanding a brand from afar. And now I can use this power to give the universe perfectly current typefaces. Thank you.
How many times did you say branding?
12?
All right. Just one. Just one extra $1.
Thank you very much. So, it's very generous. So, practically, you pay me twice. I mean,
yes,
twice as much as you promised.
This is even better than what I pay you already.
And you guys are working for free, eh?
So, tell us a little bit about what happens now. I mean, you still have do you still like to do typefaces all the time, whenever possible, or is it more under control, where you have a business partner that says, no, just like go to your desk, answer emails, get away from photographer?
Yes, actually, I try not to never do. It's like probably most of you try not to watch porn at work. I watch porn at work, but I design typefaces during my holidays.
Fair enough. Do we have a question from the audience? Do we have the microphones? All right, any questions from the audience? I'm sure we do, I just can't see anything. In the back.
Afraid.
All right, scream it and I'll repeat it.
So do you design typefaces by necessity or because you like to? Do you use a lot of your own typefaces?
Yes, I design. The question is if I design typefaces for necessity or because just I like it. I have the necessity to design typefaces, which is a problem. Sometimes, we have clients, projects where we design typefaces for them, like in Brooklyn Fair, I design a typeface for them. Other projects, I design typefaces. Sometimes I use typeface that I already designed for my own projects, for fun. And sometimes I hire type designers to design typefaces if I don't have time to do it. So it always varies. I think the typeface, it's a really important element in defining the voice of a company. It's like, my voice is like this, his voice is like, so my voice is like this big, bold typeface. His is like, actually I have to do it, I have to make it. His is kind of like Comic Sans.
And you, to your papyrus, if you will.
Yes, I'm papyrus.
Any other questions? Back there? Yep.
What's the deal with your mustache?
Which one? I like surrealism.
Next question. Here in the front.
How do you sell a typeface to a client when the typeface, doesn't exist? How do you?
Usually, you come out with a concept and you tell them you need a masculine typeface, or you need a typeface that that has vague resemblance with a fake history of Brooklyn, like the last one, which is so you try to tell them you need a typeface with certain attributes. Or sometimes, like when I hired Joshua Darden, who's a fantastic typographer, to design a typeface, I said, I have no fucking idea. Why don't you do a Garamond with slab serifs? And he said, oh, great idea, let's do it. And actually, it came out like a fantastic typeface. So, but the important thing is like, his voice is terrible, but it's important that he has his own voice, and then the things that he says are going to be maybe interesting. And then you show them, you show them like a string of letters. You write hamburger fonts in lowercase if he likes it, then you do the uppercase, and then blah 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 blah. You add letters, and usually clients don't really understand the type. Usually they trust you. Not you, but me.
Here in front.
Do you find that sort of the systematic thinking that has to go into drawing a typeface with the relationships of, straights and rounds and bulls and ascenders and descenders. Do you find that systemic thinking begins to carry over at all? It's sort of like a lateral way of thinking in terms of branding at all?
What do you mean carry over? Sorry, English is my third language.
Just the way that type is a system, and that brand can be a system. Do you find that they inform one another, that they cross-pollinate with one another, or that doesn't not really matter?
It's like, when somebody comes to us and says, can you design a logo for me? And I'm like, no, I don't design logos. not interested in designing a logo because a logo is not going to help you to sell your products. What you need, I mean, it's the whole holistic vision of a brand. So with, you know, the logo, the colors, the type, and, you know, the tone of the copy, and everything is like a little pieces of a puzzle then you need to have. Am I answering to your question or not? No. Okay.
Next question. Back here, lady in the beige sweater, Milena. Sorry, our intern.
Could you talk a little bit about your studio?
Yes, my studio is in Manhattan, in Soho. We are around, it depends, between 15 to 22 people. Maximum we reached was 25. And they say that all my friends are pretty upset, but because there's mostly women in my office. And probably women are very talented graphic designers. That's why my friends keep visiting my office. Do you want to know more about it?
I think we have time for one more question. If there's over here in the middle. Right here, center. Yep. Pass the microphone down.
So the next time that Keith McNally comes to you, do you say yes or no?
I already said no.
All right. On that note, on that bold note out of Papyrus, thank you so much, Matteo.